pushing back at drivers behaving badly. Our Inside the Story focus tonight, as the issue has again been brought front and center to the national agenda by Government Senator Imani Duncan Price. Now, the political phenom made public most of what's wrong with the current system of issuing driver's licenses and went even further to reveal some startling figures. Let's take a look. Among them, records showing over 8,500 applicants between 65 and 99 years of age were issued with first-time driver's licenses. Why would they have waited so long? There's more. Over 1,700 applicants under 17 years of age were issued with driver's licenses. And you may know that the law says an applicant must be 17 years or older. We also have 740 records of applicants under 21 years of age who were given a general driver's license. And again, the law stipulates that such a person must exceed the year 21 years old. Now, that's the nature of the discrepancy, or plain and simple fraud upon the system where the issuance of driver's licenses is concerned. It also spells danger on the road for all of us. Let's go inside the story tonight with Senator Imani Duncan Price and Dr. Lucian Jones, Vice Chairman of the National Road Safety Committee. Startling figures. And I think there's more as well, where these discrepancies have come up. What, in your own estimation, could be behind all of this?
Well, in putting forward my motion in the Senate, actually about 2 months ago, the rationale was that beyond the starting figures that were revealed by the actual Auditor General last year, these same discrepancies that you point to, we also saw that the cost to the country in terms of crashes and people injuries from crashes amounted to approximately $1.8 billion in our health sector. And that doesn't count the pain for families, lost income, not being at work, impact and additional costs that families actually bear as a result. And so all of this really speaks to the fact that people buy a license, unfortunately. Sometimes they get a license and they can't read or write, and therefore have difficulty interpreting the fullness of the road code. Some persons get a general license and aren't able to manage the size vehicles that license allows. And all these come together, I thought, in the result that we see.
Yes,
so
with a lot of fatalities on the roads, a lot of crashes.
Exactly, crashes and injuries.
Driver errors and all of that.
Right.
But Dr. Jones, quite often, in the Road Safety Council's Save 300 campaign that we've come to know for several years now, we're always stressing safe driving, safe driving. But if persons are not equipped ab initio from the very early stages in the basics of defensive driving and proper driving techniques, then what's the use?
Well, as you know, Elon, we are absolutely thrilled that Senator Duncan has elevated this issue at a very high level in the upper house. And just for information, so far for this year, 88 people have died on our roads compared to 118 last year. So we are minus 30. So we are doing reasonably well. But as you know, a day can bring about a disaster. So
what do you attribute to that decrease?
Police efficiency, lots of hard work by the police on the road, public education system that we've been running for some time now, and lots of people collaborating, doing some good work. But primarily,
and how much better could we do then if we rid the streets of these persons who fraudulently obtained driver's licenses?
I remember former Prime Minister Edward Seaga talking about pulling levers. This is one significant lever that we can pull. If we can get the Island Traffic Authority reorganized, running efficiently, cut down the fraud, cut out all this stuff where people can buy a license, it would make a huge difference. And
we should say that we did invite a representative from the Island Traffic Authority to be with us here this evening for that very reason, because so much of the Road Traffic Act really does not empower the Island Traffic Authority to do what it is supposed to do. I think the representative is here. We're hoping to have him on set with us a little bit later on, and then we'll go into that issue a little bit more. What you were going on to say?
Yeah, as I said, it's one of the levers we can pull. I mean, you can get police on the road, and they can be issuing tickets. People cut down their speed. You can do your public advertising, public education, and where people, it reaches a broader, richer people. But at the heart of the matter is the person who is issued a license falsely, fraudulently, and can't manage a vehicle, doesn't know the road code, and creates mayhem on our roads. And we see this happening time and time again. And that's one issue. The other issue, of course, is the demerit system, whereby if you breach the law, you can be issued demerit points. But right now we are having challenges because the IT is not so empowered to revoke license or to have people come off the road because they have exceeded the amount of points.
But since you've gone there, let's take a look at some of the legal loopholes that now obtain in the issuance of driver's licenses, just to put this discussion into perspective for you to understand why it is we are at risk on our roads, right? Well, we're going to get to the reinforcement in a little while. We want to deal with the legal loopholes first. That's at the end of the discussion. Sorry about that. We just sort of jumped the gun there a little bit. But I want to show you the legal loopholes that now obtain. Drivers with many demerit points, you were making note of it, Dr. Jones, moments ago, that warrant suspension of licenses get away because the Island Traffic Authority does not have the power to do so. That is, take away those licenses. And many fatal crashes involve PPV and commercial drivers who have a significant number of demerit points. So, a lot of these truck drivers, a lot of these bus drivers taking our children to school and even us to and from work ought not to be on the roads. The Island Traffic Authority is powerless.
So one of the things one of the things in the motion that Senator Duncan Price put forward, we are absolutely in support, where you could, because the Road Traffic Act is a huge body, it's going to take a long time to pass. If you can extract out of it one small portion, just empower for the time being the Island Traffic Authority to be so empowered to suspend licenses to make a huge difference. Right now it's not possible.
And what is the view of your fellow legislators on this?
Well, what was fantastic was that when I brought the matter to the Senate, it received absolute positive support. And in fact, for the first time in 8 years, the leader of the business in the Senate invoked Standing Clause 26A, which pretty much means that normally a motion is supported, it's noted, it brings national awareness, and that is pretty much it.
Yes.
But in this case, what he did by invoking 26A was say, okay, we're going to take this seriously and take it as a national policy issue.
To keep it alive.
And actually make sure within 21 days, submit a report to Cabinet and request from them within 14 days a response of the action to be taken.
And that action to be taken will include the leader of government business in the lower house bringing it to Parliament.
Exactly. Well, actually, no. The thing that we're talking about can be done on a policy level. It doesn't require, remember now, there's the whole Road Traffic Act, which has been under review for quite a time.
Yeah, so we're talking speedy amendments.
Speedy amendments that can be on the policy level by the minister himself with support from the Cabinet. And so what I'm hoping for is that I'm pushing for within 60 days, we see some differences in the administrative capacity and capability of the Island Traffic Authority.
You mentioned differences. We're going to look at how differently we can do things to reinforce the rules on the road after the break.
Yes, because the person going to say, for you take off him points, you're going to do better. Next time going to do better what him doing, because keep on taking off him points, you're going to lose.
The merit in their points of the license, I think it would allow them to drive better.
If them do it today and take it and then get back the bus the other day, and so they might go back and do the same thing. So there's no rule there and no regulation. Not helping.
No. I think something should be done regarding them, because bad drivers keep repeatedly, getting away with certain style of driving. And I think my opinion is that them should get them out of the system totally.
Well, basically it's not, because first and foremost, the government needs some financial investment in that sector in order to keep track of the database system that they have. So basically that's it.
The views there from the streets of the corporate area. We still have with us Senator Imani Duncan Price and Dr. Lucian Jones. We're now joined He's Vice Chairman of the National Road Safety Committee, and we're now joined by Clive MacDonald. He's the Chief Motor Vehicle Inspector at the Island Traffic Authority. Good evening and welcome, Mr. MacDonald. I'll begin with you because there's a relevant section of the Road Traffic Act that we're going to be sharing with our viewers right now that really hobbles the ability of the Island Traffic Authority to get tough on these drivers who accumulate these points and really ought to be off the road. And it's section 19 of the Road Traffic Act, which says where it appears that the licensing authority, that there is reason to believe that any holder of a driver's license or a provisional license, the licensing authority shall revoke or suspend as the case may require the license held by such person. Who's that authority the law is referring to?
I'm glad you brought that up, Elon. We actually thought it was us.
You thought it was
we
you?
Thought it was us. Originally, we thought it was us. And we actually start issuing the notices as well some time back with this new traffic ticketing system. But, you know, we were told by the courts that based on their interpretation how the law was framed, that we are not the authority. I know the next question I'm going to ask is, who is the authority? We are not certain.
Hold on, back up a bit.
Yes.
There's usually a reason for the passage of laws, right?
That's correct.
Legislators usually go line by line through legislation to establish who the authority ought to be, what powers are to be vested in that authority, and all of that kind of thing, right?
Correct.
That is generally agreed on.
That's correct.
What happened here?
It's hard for me to speculate since 1938, but I think it's how it was framed.
No, but if it's framed in the sense that it's a licensing authority,
right,
and the Island Traffic Authority is deemed as such, then where does the anomaly lie?
I'm not certain, because at one stage they were suggesting that it could be the Transport Authority.
Oh.
Yes.
And I think that's weird, but Transport Authority really just deal with public passenger vehicle.
Right.
And of course, obviously they would not be the effective person to do it. So it's hard for me to sit here and answer that question, yes, why they thought it is not.
Yeah, any thoughts on it? Because the court in its interpretation has really ruled out the ITA.
It has, but to the point we made before, it's not so much a matter of why the ambiguity. And I must tell you, as a new senator, even though we do try to go line by line with all the laws that come before us, sometimes ambiguities slip through. And unfortunately, or rather fortunately, it is possible to take on that part of the act itself and a simple amendment to that to allow for the authority which actually gives the license to be able to revoke it.
Right.
So it's not a matter, I mean, I take your point about,
and
that's exactly what I'm calling when the Senate to support that
and the Cabinet,
and the Cabinet actually.
We are supporting it.
Right, so that is where we think we can in fact have a short-term intervention while we deal with the overall Road Traffic Act to make sure there are no ambiguities and a lot of more things are modernized.
Yes, which is going to come on stream in another year or
exactly.
so. The debate is
the
expected
nature,
to begin
remember now that the Road Traffic Act, it's quite a large, significant.
I poured through it today. It's very long.
Voluminous, exactly. Now, it also is linked to other pieces of legislation.
Yes.
So in amending this, you have to make sure there's consistency and coherency with other supporting legislation.
Yes, especially as it deals with disabilities and that kind of thing.
Right, exactly. So,
and there's a certain level of urgency now, Elon. We can all recall the crash perhaps about 4 months ago when minibuses were speeding down the hill coming down Manchester. And I think both of the drivers, if memory serves me correctly, had demerit points exceeding that which would trigger
the threshold.
A withdrawal of their license.
Yes.
And imagine, you know, as Island Traffic Authority, have persons coming to you, or IRD, right, in the Revenue Department, having persons come to you and you know that they have surpassed the threshold for actual demerit points, and you can do nothing about it. Has to go to the court system, which already is backlogged. I mean, how do you feel as a public official, as a servant?
You have put forward some reinforcements of the road rules. We're going to share them now with our viewers. Where reinforcing the road rules are concerned. I mean, obviously, it's up to us as drivers on the roads to take care, But if we're not going to do it, then obviously these rules must be put into force. According to Senator Duncan, among them private motor vehicle inspection services, taking that out of the hands of the Island Traffic Authority. You know, from time to time, your members have come under the the glare of corruption where that is concerned, especially in the issuance of fitness certificates. Establish electronic system of transfer of certificate of competence. Put in place a high-end distinctive security features on the driver's license itself. SSP Lewis is strong on that one. Applicants for license to drive public passenger vehicles to submit a police report with their application. System for the retesting and recertification of drivers. Want to hear your thoughts on that, Mr. McDonald, in a while. And development of tests and scored evaluation forms for learner drivers.
Can I clarify one thing?
Sure.
While in the motion I spoke to the possibility of privatizing the inspection services, I'm not definitively in that direction. The point I was making was that it is time for us to make a decision. It's been in discussions for years. I mean, I think it's over when I asked, 8 to 10 years.
You support that, Mr. McDonald?
No,
taking it out
sorry,
of the
and I don't actually necessarily support it because the corruption can happen in private companies as it does in public entities. The issues can be solved, and the government does need revenues for the coffers of the country, like hospitals, education, and so forth. And if we privatize it, this becomes a lost opportunity.
There's a problem with the privatization as well. You could very well privatize it to a person who has similar interest in selling parts, and you might have a conflict of interest there.
Oh. That's also
so,
true.
You know, we have to be careful or run to privatize it, apart from the revenue implication that the government might lose. But I must say I'm happy with the Senator for pushing this, because the Ireland Traffic Authority, a lot of our thoughts was our thoughts as well. And we just didn't get the drive from somebody driving it at that level. So Senator Duncan, you know, is a blessing for us to be pushing this
Well, you've done great works. I mean, I'm more interested in giving voice to what already is known, you know, and hopefully providing some impetus for us to move forward.
Of privatizing the operation, I think the question of government revenues is a central issue, but perhaps in terms of operations, the far greater issue from our standpoint is how can we make the operations much more efficient? Because what happens now is a big joke. You go there, your car is put over, excuse me, your car is put, with the greatest respect, the car is put over an area, you rock your steering a couple of times, you drive up there, somebody takes the car and spins around a couple of times and stuff. No, there are technologies available now that can examine your car much more carefully. Now, if privatization means that we can quickly move in that direction, I'm for it. If it doesn't, well, there's a question mark.
I'm very concerned about the environmental aspect of those tests as well. When you look at some of those vehicles belching smoke into the air, you really wonder. You know, sometimes they just drive past the police and...
It is though, you know, well, the method that we use is outdated. It's a physical test. I would need to move to scientific testing of vehicle. And scientific testing of vehicles using dynamometers and equipment like those will really take care of those emissions and test it in a more accurate way and print a proper certificate of fitness.
How much would it cost to retrofit the ITA?
I don't have the figure here. We did some research. A company actually made a presentation to us. I don't have the figure here, but it's different bays. You'd have bays for normal motor cars, bays for SUVs, bays for motorcycles, bays for trucks. So it depends on to what level you want to go with scientific testing.
Dr. Jones, while we're here hammering down on bad drivers and coming hard on them, where it concerns the government side of things, holding up its side of the bargain where observing the road code is concerned, signs, signals, that kind of thing, how well or badly are we doing in that department?
Well, I mean in terms of the Ministry of Transport and the various agencies.
The relevant ministry.
I know in particular, marking the roads has been done much better in recent times. There are other signs that we would like to have, especially pedestrian signs. That's a major problem for us because majority of the people there on the roads are pedestrians. So if you don't have the pedestrian markings, you don't have the pedestrian signs, then that poses a problem. I don't think we have as many as we want to, but I think in terms of central marking, the lateral markings, those have been greatly improved in recent times.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Senator. Good run on the opening of your innings there in the...
Better than West Indies.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.